Well, my name's Daniel Driensky. I've met different people in the audience through different walks of my artistic career. I started out as a photographer about 15 years ago, and then slowly as video was integrated into digital cameras, I decided to test it out. And I'd experiment here and there, but about 9 years ago, Sarah and I really started collaborating and creating videos together. And so I have her to thank for pushing me to do that a little bit more, but just have always loved documentary, taking portraits, or telling stories. So that's kind of evolved into Exploredinary and what we do today.
Okay. So my name is Sarah Reyes. My background is actually in architecture. I started in that profession. And when I was going to grad school, I asked Daniel if he could get me a camera so that we could go to visit different graduate programs and I could just take pictures to capture the journey. What eventually wound up happening is people thought that we were travel photographers and we wound up getting so much business that I got to a point where the part-time thing became a full-time thing. I wound up quitting my job at the firm, and Daniel and I have been working together ever since.
And my name is Sean Starr, and I feel silly even saying that after what we just watched. So they did a great job of explaining my background and what I do, and very appreciative that you guys all came out to see their film.
Well, I guess to get started, we'll start with, how did this come about? How did this project come into existence?
Well, our friendship goes back to, 2017?
Yes.
They were hired to do a story the Dallas Observer was doing on my studio. And we just immediately hit it off. And that turned into going on camping trips together. And in 2019, actually, it was late 2018. I got a call from a friend who is a photojournalist, and he said, "I'm going to Nepal and shooting this story, and one of the guys dropped out. Would you like to go ride motorcycles in Nepal?" And of course, I was 100% in. And so the trip that you see in the film, I actually took a very similar trip in early 2019. And so when I got back from that trip, I had lunch with these guys in Dallas and kind of gave them the download of, what I experienced. And I could tell they were as excited and as enthusiastic about what I was describing, especially since we had so many conversations over the years about, handcrafted work and the importance of preserving that. And so I asked them, I said, if we can somehow put things together, would you guys be interested in going out there and shooting a doc about the people out there and the handcrafted work? And they were 100% in. And within just a matter of months, one thing fell into place after another. And so we ended up going out there at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, so why don't you, Sarah and Daniel, talk a little bit about that. So starting shooting in 2020, obviously we know what happened in 2020, and then how did the project progress from there? How did you get through it all? And to obviously now, it's a little over 3 years later, finally getting everything finished up.
Well, first of all, every time I see that scene in the village of Sean doing the dance, if I would have met him in 2017 and just said, "Hey, I think in a few years, I'm going to film you doing a dance with the Megar tribe in the Himalayas," he would have looked at me like I was crazy. That, or he would have been like, "Let's go tomorrow." So basically, we embarked on the trip in February, the last day of February 2020. COVID was starting to be a thing, but not really world spread yet. And left on the trip, and we're planned to be out there for 2 weeks. And
just question in the microphone.
Oh, okay. And basically knew that we had a list of artisans, didn't even really know which order it was going to be in. But we just would capture every day, and sometimes we would mic up Sean to interview them, like you saw with the Tonka painter. Sometimes we'd only mic the artisan that we were interviewing because their interview needed to be translated anyway. So it was just like capturing all this footage and not really thinking about the order it was going to go in until later on. But first and foremost, kind of just enjoying this crazy expedition together as these Texans that were placed in just this random part of the world and beautiful, and to come back after COVID and the world was totally different. It felt like we went through a loophole or something because of all we had experienced. And
but also to answer your question about what it was like traveling during COVID, when we left, there was word that there was this respiratory virus, and we knew that it was COVID, but it didn't seem real. Like it didn't seem like dangerous or anything. And so we kind of took a gamble. Should we go? And everybody, all of our family was like, don't go. And we were like, we're definitely going. So we went, and it was still maybe a week into the trip that we actually wound up going to visit the Magar tribe. And we were in the mountains for so long, there was no signal. And so it wasn't until we left the mountains and got to our hotel like 4 days later that we finally got television, the news, and they were like, Tom Hanks has COVID. And reality set in that this is like a bigger deal than we initially thought. And in addition to that, Daniel and I were supposed to do another project out in England and then Scotland. Those two got canceled. We wound up just flying straight home after Nepal. Sean was like, I'll wait it out a week, thinking that COVID would like burn out after a week. And Sean, I'll let you tell that part of the story.
Yeah, so my wife Jennifer and I, we had scheduled to go to Varanasi, India for a week after our trip in Nepal. And, they left, and within, I think, 48 hours, the border got closed, our flights got canceled, everything got locked down. And we were there for, I think it was about 3 weeks maybe. And we were very fortunate. There were two...
Talk a little closer to the microphone.
There were two flights that were, the American Embassy flew two groups of people out, and we were lucky enough to be on one of those. Thanks to the Dallas Observer, who did a story about us being stuck over there, because we later found out that they were trying to pull people out that were getting press coverage so that they wouldn't get negative press coverage. So we got out, and about 12,000 other Americans were stuck behind, and some of them for as long as a year. Wow. When the border opened back up. So we were very fortunate to get out when we did, and then, just came home and started trying to figure out what these guys were going to do with all that footage.
So you shot, you had all the footage, you come back, and it's now early 2020. And so what have you been doing for 3 years with your here?
Well, first, I mean, when you have something as big as COVID, you're like, well, we didn't really get anything related to COVID over there footage-wise, but it's like, do you go into a whole separate chapter where you talk about that, or does that kind of stamp it as like a 2020 film, 2021 film if you do that? So we were back and forth about that. We did Zoom Sean and his wife Jenny a couple of times while they were in their Airbnb locked down. And we're like, oh, maybe we could use some of that footage of them saying, yeah, we're not allowed to leave the house. Only one person per household has to go to the market and bring us food. And so we're like, how do we do this? So it was just taking time to figure out the puzzle pieces. And a lot of times with documentary filmmaking, you have to like create the puzzle piece before you know like the shape of the hole that it goes in. So it's like, it's really difficult, and you don't have the box to look at to see what pattern you're supposed to put that piece in. So you're just creating from scratch sometimes.
And also part of the journey of creating this project was the fact that all of us are just, we have two working studios, full-time working studios. So when we got back, we both kind of prioritized, like, we should probably make some money in case, everything shuts down. So that was kind of something that was, took over our businesses for a little bit. But after that, it was just all our free time. So nights and weekends, and both Sean and ourselves were always super, super busy. But Sean also, not only did he do all of the music in the film, but all of the titles. Some of those are hand lettered, like his actual fonts, or like block stamps that he's collected over the years. So every aspect of it had to be handmade, basically.
Well, that's very cool. And 3 years really isn't a long time in the world of documentary filmmaking, but I'd like to give you a hard time anyway. So,
Thanks.
but one of the hardest things about making a film, whether it's a feature or short or anything else, and a documentary, is always raising the funds, to put it together. And obviously, you spend a lot of your own free time, nights, weekends, editing, things like that. Talk about a little bit about, you don't have to reveal numbers or anything. How did you put this together to actually get everybody to Nepal and shoot that and spend your time there and everything? Talk about a little bit. From a documentary standpoint, how you raise the funds to put a film like this together.
Sean was essentially the producer to get us over there. And then after that, all the editing. And I think we went down to his town of Calvert, maybe a dozen times. There's only 2 or 3 interviews that you see in the film where you can tell his hair changed or whatever. But that was all like sweat equity, just putting that in. And we film and edit and everything ourselves, so that helped too, to keep it all in-house. That's pretty much covers it.
It's a labor of love, essentially.
Yeah, labor of love.
Sure.
Together. Well, I could ask you guys questions all night, but I'm sure the audience, you guys just watched this great movie. Who has questions, wants to ask Sean or anybody else anything about the film you just saw? Julio?
Yeah, I got a question. First of all, congratulations. Oh my God, I feel like I was in Nepal.
And it's great to watch it on the screen where you're so close and it's so big.
So close. The question I have is, both of you, and this is a question for Sarah and Daniel. And by the way, you're incredible. Your work is incredible.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But both of you have a way of shooting in a way that it's so seamless. You've been doing this 9 years. How was it in the beginning to where you are today to get to this point where it's so seamless the way you guys shoot? Usually somebody has a certain style of shooting when they handle the camera. You guys have done such a beautiful job. See, it's very seamless, but how long did it take you to get there?
Well, thank you, Julio. We really appreciate that. First of all, it's a great compliment. I think like lens and camera selection, we kind of, I don't know, like to be able to shoot, if I knew I needed to get wide stuff, I would put a wide on my camera and then have Sarah get coverage or the detail shots, or, I don't know, how do we really dictate, like?
Well, I would say like any of the big motion shots that require like big arms are probably Daniel.
Gimbal.
And a lot of the shots that are like low to the ground are probably myself. But in I know by looking at his camera, like what he's shooting, and the lens kind of tells me what kind of composition he's got. And so I will kind of try to complement that, or I don't know, I guess like Daniel is, anybody who knows Daniel knows that he's a maximalist, like more is more. And I'm kind of like more of a minimalist. So that's kind of also how we frame our subjects. So it pairs really well because you do always want to see overall like a wide kind of shot to establish everything. And then the closer up shots are usually mine, I would say. Sometimes, yeah.
And it was just years of also looking, like coming back on, let's say year 1 of shooting and being like, oh, we kind of moved too fast of a pan on that shot. Let's do better next time. Or just like constantly improving to where we were both on the same page. And it's like, now it's like seamless and totally unspoken. Like we just know, okay, you go get this angle and then I'll shoot from it. It's like, well, we don't say anything. We just kind of like drift into it like ninjas,
And Sean, can you talk a little bit about what's it like being the subject of a documentary, essentially? It's you that's on screen that they're focusing on the whole time. Was that a little different for you? Have you been the subject of a documentary before? Talk about like that, the experience in general of, sort of telling your story that you really brought together.
It's weird and uncomfortable, for sure. I was one of the artists featured in a documentary about 10 years ago called Sign Painters, which actually they screened here at Texas Theater as well. And yeah, it doesn't ever feel normal or okay. It feels very strange, but and I think they can attest to this, even though they're always on the other side of the camera. You know, we all just felt so strongly about telling that story of what was in Nepal and what we all experienced, that you kind of just, you know, try to step away from your own, you know, the own weirdness in your head of seeing your face, you know, 15 feet tall or whatever, and just go back to, yeah, but this is a really important story, because culturally, especially as we move more towards, you know, digital, you know, there's just so many things that are at risk of being lost that really connect people. And that's, you know, for me personally, why I felt it was so important to kind of put myself out there with this.
Yeah, it was really great. And when watching it, it made me think almost like this could be a Netflix series. Art is Love, Chile and Nepal, and you know,
we've got ideas. Yes.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, exactly. It feels like it has that kind of setup that it could go on and it can be a whole series. And this could be a great proof of concept to show someone, to say, hey, look what we can do. Look what we did with no budget. Imagine if you just gave us a little bit of something, you know, what we could put together.
Well,
so.
if you know anyone, call them.
Well, good content can be hard to find.
With filming internationally, can you talk about the process of that and the concept of release forms overseas, as well as, I guess, just the cultural etiquette or things that y'all have to learn to be respectful to the natives and everything?
Talk about your kit.
That's a good question.
All the kit got packed.
Well, I think it definitely helped. I think all these shows you see on like Netflix, they'll have like a fixer that goes and sets those things up beforehand. And we didn't have the luxury of having an extra fixer and a tour guide. So the woman, Susan, you see on screen was our fixer, was our tour guide. So she set up all that stuff beforehand for us. And it made it a lot easier, a lot more seamless, so that they weren't like, oh, who are these Americans with cameras? Get out of here. Like, they were all comfortable with the camera. She assured them that this was going to be widely seen or lead to good things for them. Some of them we did pay extra. So, I mean, that really helped, rather than just going in with a camera. Because we have tried, even, you know, in a small town elsewhere in America, it's like if they can tell you're an outsider, sometimes they'll shut you down. So if you're able to connect with someone local and befriend them, and they'll be the gatekeeper, the one that lets you through the gate.
Do you want to talk about your kit, like
constructing
the kit? Well, so essentially, also in terms of shooting internationally, there's, you know, so many like pieces of luggage that you can take with you. And we really didn't want to take on like giant Pelican cases or anything like that. So we fit all of our gear into like 2 giant suitcases. And so that's like lights, cameras, tripods, gimbal, drone, all of that. And we kind of like had to fit our clothes into like a tiny little shoebox of a space. And like Daniel actually like forgot all of his socks somehow. So we were washing the same tattered socks.
You can buy socks in Nepal though, right?
Yeah. But it was, that was also just so that we wouldn't have to be carrying so much gear, because you really, when you're going out into those remote areas, the weight is a huge deal, because if we were to load down our vehicle with too much extra weight, those hairpin turns, those curves, like you might just go off the edge of the cliff as well. So there were weight restrictions, and you know, we had to also pack all of our camping gear. So it was complicated, and it was like a very minimal setup. Like, we would have preferred to take more lenses, more equipment, but that wasn't an option.
And just overall, that's the beauty of Sarah and I working together as such a small team, is like, it, first of all, it doesn't intimidate the subject to where they're freaking out because there's like 10 people around. And I do know that Sometimes for these productions, that's necessary. They have a lighting tech and like a photographer's assistant, all this stuff. But when we're able to go into a situation, and if the person's already nervous of a camera, and we're just like, no, Sean, it's just me. It's just me. Like comfort the subject a little bit. It makes it a lot easier.
Well, and what about audio capture as well? Because obviously your audio is pretty clean. So, and that can be one of the hardest parts with a small crew.
We did like synthesizer lav mics, and so I wish I had the Rode and the DJI now to not have to deal with the wires and like the AA batteries for the receiver and the transmitter and the Zoom recorder. So I'm so grateful for these all-in-one kind of Rode and DJI mics. But yeah, it was all lav mics. The conversation with the papermaker, which we really love when he's talking about the impermanence of life. I think I had already taken his mic off. So I just had the shotgun mic on my camera, and I was like, like keep talking. But I had a super wide lens, so I was able to get the 2-shot with Sean and the papermaker in there still. But I was like, dang it, we took his mic off, but don't interrupt him now.
That's great. Okay, more questions. In the back up there.
First of all, I like to congratulate Sean Starr, Daniel, and Sarah. I'm from Nepal. My name is Mohan. I've been here since '96. Now we are proud to see the movie, and we are about 100,000 in Texas,
Wow.
Nepali American community. One day, you guys, we're gonna have a recognize to you if you provide your information.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, and we'd love to come screen this for the Nepali community. So let us know. We'll talk to you afterwards.
And there was another question right up there as well.
Coming off of that, as a congratulatory thing for all three of you, and we're so congratulations. What a phenomenal experience.
Thank you.
What was it like? Did you have an existential aha moment in any given time? I know you were processing through this process, the virus and all the things that were happening around you. Did you have one moment, if you could literally zoom out, no pun intended, that was an existential aha moment that you can name that this entire experience gave you?
So I guess for me, this entire project made me realize that the highest form of self-expression is creativity. And there's so many facets to that. Like you could be creative at cooking, at cleaning, at business, at being an entrepreneur, at fine arts. But I do feel like the highest form of self-expression is creativity, and the highest form of connection with community is collaboration. And so I do feel like this collaboration between myself and Daniel and Sean is just such a special moment because in the film, some of the clips go back all the way to when we first met him 7 years ago. So it's kind of like a portrait of our friendship as well.
Mm-hmm.
As far as existentially, I don't know if everybody caught. Okay, so there's Pashupatinath, which is the Hindu temple where Hindus are like honored to have their body cremated when they die. And we were on the ghats, as they call them, where they stack up the wood and put the body there and ignite it. And when I would see after the wood had burned all the way down, the ashes were left, and somebody would come up with a bucket of water and just clear the ashes. And it was just like, oh my God, like we're not here forever, and we really have to enjoy and travel and meet people and just enjoy life. And so experiencing that, and that was like right before the Moto expedition. And then we went up into the mountains, and it was just like, and so again, like coming back, and COVID had changed the world. I was like, did I go through some kind of time warp or loophole? Because my brain is like different now.
Mm. Yeah.
Closer, Sean.
I think Sarah really touched on it with the collaboration thing and how, you really see this when you collaborate with other creatives, and there's this stages where you're starting out as like friends. And I think for so many creative people, there's a feeling of isolation. You know, you question your sanity on a regular basis, and you know your way of seeing the world. And when you end up connecting with someone else who's creative, that you know there's kind of like this common language that develops where it's like, oh, wait a minute, they get what I'm saying, and I'm getting what they're saying. And so that's what evolved over the last 7 years was, you know, I had some idea that I might not even really be able to get out of my head about how I felt about, you know, traditional craftsmanship or some of these other, you know, larger concepts dealing with, you know, Eastern philosophy and those kind of things. And they would pick up on it and be like, hey, wait, like let's start over, talk more about this. And, you know, they brought that out, something that if I was just, you know, kind of floundering on my own, I wouldn't have been able to do. And there's this kind of moment where, you know, I view our friendship and collaboration as like gone through these stages of like, you know, friendship to close friends. And, you know, now there's this intimacy of like a family type connection that's just really valuable to me. And it has made working on this was a real pleasure because of that.
I wanted to ask you about the motorcycle riding because obviously, you know, from the shots that you see, it looks pretty sketchy and dangerous as it is. And I haven't rode a motorcycle in a long time. Last time I rode a motorcycle, I was in an accident. And so what's it like, you know, when you're just on the edge of a cliff like that? I mean, it literally looks like 1 inch and then you're gone, you know, talking just about that experience in general.
Well, it's odd. It's one of the things that I feel like the filming couldn't fully capture because there's these turns and these spots where you're just stopping for a little break and you look over and go, oh my God, what am I doing? So, you know, it's super intense, but you know, there's also something so thrilling about that and exciting that, you know, you do things that might not be in your best interest, but how do you not do it?
Yeah, when you said that was the easy ride, I can't even imagine what the hard ride actually.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, Vishu is like this Superman of motorcycling. You know, we talked to some of the other Sherpas in his team, and they would just talk about him like kind of baffled because he would go to some of these remote villages, some of which don't even show up on maps, but he would drive sometimes 20 or 30 hours at a stretch, you know, going through all of these little villages and going up into the Mustang. And, you know, so to him, yeah, it's just like, no big deal.
But I want Sarah to talk a little bit about why we had to do mention the motorcycle accident as a post-credit scene.
You don't want to talk about it.
Well, so basically it was on our very last day of filming and we're kind of like, just like, yeah, we got it all in the can, you know, yeah. And then, because I had been filming,
Put the cameras up because it was so bumpy.
Yeah, we put the cameras up. It was super bumpy and I had gotten plenty of stuff out the windshield. But then we come around the corner and like Sean's laying in the middle of the road and we didn't film because we thought he was dead. So it was like, we're like,
Well, okay, so he's laying in the middle of the road. We come across Sean and his wife, Jenny. We're like, oh my God. And then the driver's like, oh my God. And I was like, so he stops. We run out and we're standing over Sean like this and he's knocked out. And he opens his eyes and he's like, why aren't you guys filming? And we were like, are you okay? And he was fine. But that's why, yeah.
And then talk a little bit about the Sherpa first aid that they gave you.
Yeah, so I'm disoriented and banged up, and you know, Jenny's kind of like freaked out because she's not sure if I'm okay or not. And I had scraped up my arms pretty good, and the one guy gets out, one of the Sherpas, and he starts spraying my arm, and it was burning. And so I look down, and he's got a bottle of like it's spray auto wax. and he's spraying it on my arm, and I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening. But I've got this weird white patch on my tattoo on my arm because it healed weird. So I don't know if that's the wax or what.
Does the water just roll off?
It does, yes.
When you take a shower?
Very shiny.
Yeah. We had a question right here.
Yeah, about the motorcycle ride. I thought I saw some GoPro cameras on the helmets.
Yeah.
You ended up not using any of that footage?
Yeah, all the footage where it felt like it was right behind a motorcycle, that was all GoPro. So it looked pretty good on the screen, though. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
surprised
so
too.
it turned out well.
Some really good over the edge shots that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody else had. Okay, yeah, we're here.
One more question for Sean about the music. You said you did all the music yourself.
Yes.
So have you been like studying Nepalese or Hindi music? I mean, it was really, I thought it was great.
Oh, thank you. I started playing guitar and other acoustic instruments when I was a teenager, and I've always played music. And we were discussing music when they were doing editing, and I approached them. I was like, hey, I have this idea. I'd really like to do the music. And if you absolutely hate it, that's totally cool. But I'd like to at least, give you guys a couple of things and see if you think it might work. And they responded positively, so I just kept going. And the music that you're hearing is a combination of some of the acoustic instruments that I play and some electronic music combined. And as far as the inspiration, there's some Hindu devotional singers that I like Krishna Das is one that really stands out. And having listened to him for several years, I kind of just picked up a vibe of what I wanted it to sound like, that kind of was mixed with capturing, I don't know how else to put it, but just capturing the feeling that we had there. And so I instituted a lot of, even would record little samples and things, some samples from over there of things that I could incorporate into the songs that would capture some of that feeling and some of the chaos that's like in Kathmandu. It's super noisy, but some of that noise is really beautiful. So I tried to work as much of that into those songs as I could.
And it's free to stream, right?
Yeah, it's on all the streaming stuff under Blue Throat.
I was going to say, music can be one of the most expensive things in post-production for a film. So I'm sure you guys were very appreciative of
Yes.
Sean doing the music.
Yes, very incredible video. I've been waiting for this day since day one. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Video really made me nostalgic. Very happy to be here today. I would like to ask you, do you guys have any question for anybody that wants to visit Nepal? All of you guys, please.
Yes, so I would like to say that if anybody does want to visit Nepal, it is such an easy place to visit because as you could tell from the film, there's so many people that speak English. Tourism is big in Nepal, and so almost everybody that's working kind of in the tourism field, so the hotels or the shops, almost everybody speaks English. And even in the village in Gulmi, I don't know if you noticed the little kids, they were practicing their lettering. It was like in English. So it's a very easy place to go and talk to people, get around. The most expensive thing is like your ticket over there. And then from there on, you can enjoy like the finest hotels, the best food at like the most reasonable rates. If anybody would like to visit, we can connect you with Susan, our guide, or if you want to go on an adventure, motorcycle adventure, like Vishu, we can give you his information. He's awesome.
You're starting a side business,
Brokerage firm.
Nepal travel
Yeah.
company.
But yeah, I would say if anybody's interested, it's a great place to go.
I don't have anything to add to that, but yeah, I agree. You should go. And you stop over in Dubai as well, which Sean learned from his first trip. Like instead of just waiting in the airport for our layover, like let's go to the markets and explore Dubai, and it's totally safe for tourists and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's another thing is Nepal is incredibly safe. We never had to worry about our cameras, our gear, walking around with anything. It's such a safe place, and yeah, I highly recommend it.
All right. Merced?
Great job, you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Question about y'all's process, because I'm very curious.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I have a question about y'all's process, because I'm very curious, because I work as a narrative filmmaker, and as the saying goes, right, like you start on the page, and then in production, things inevitably change, and then in post, they end up being finalized, right? So things change, right? Piece to piece, process to process. I'm curious, is that the same for documentary filmmaking? Like, how do you find the story? Like, were you going into it expecting one thing, and then by the time you got there, it became something different, and then when you were editing, you just found this whole new angle to it that you just went
So
back
if you couldn't hear, he was asking, how did the story really come about? Did it change from what they initially thought at the beginning when they started making it to what that final piece was? And in post-production, story changes a lot, especially in documentaries. So just how did that work for you guys in the process?
Yeah, I would say there's been many iterations of the film. We started out by kind of tackling each subject individually. So there are long form versions of pretty much every art form, and just culling it down. And we actually, two of our friends, Hadi Mawagdi, who's here today, he's helped us so much by like kind of just reviewing our edits. And he's a producer of podcasts. So he's like really great at editing. And Robert Weiss also is another amazing documentary filmmaker. He's watched it as well and gave us his feedback. So it's a kind of a community process. It's like we get it down to what we feel like is as close as possible to what we're trying to say. We involve friends or other talented people to help us pare it down even more.
And I really feel like it's similar to when you watch a potter like start to shape a pot on the wheel. Like when you just see that lump there, you're like, how is this going to turn into something beautiful? And it's like as you're starting out making the film, you have your footage, you're like, oh, this 10 seconds is beautiful, let me put that aside. And then there's some projects where you just be like, man, I just don't have enough. But this was just such an epic trip, and we had so much beautiful footage that we did think about if there was anything we didn't capture while we were over there, story-wise or like with narration. We're like, okay, we need to re-interview Sean and get him to like basically form that clay vessel some more, like just to refine it, because we really know this is an important story. So anything we missed in the fury of being over there and filming, we like made up for with narration later. But it really was that analogy of creating a puzzle piece from scratch with no reference photo. You're just like, I need to create this piece, but I don't know quite how it's going to fit in. But yeah, it was a long process.
I feel like I've ignored this side of the room because my back.
Yeah, who's got a question
sorry.
over here?
Anybody
Let's
over
see.
here? We have questions from this side of the room anywhere.
Get Bart Weiss right there. What do you got?
Bart's got one.
Well, it's not really a question and comment. First of all, really wonderful film. A lot of times when I see documentaries with drones, they are gratuitous shots that mean nothing, and just like, I bought a drone, I want to show it to you. And I thought all of the drone shots really told the story well. They're really beautiful, they were well placed, well thought out, and it wasn't a gratuitous drone shot.
Thank you.
Bart was happy there are no gratuitous drone shots. Anyone else over here, up here? And I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
So I wanted to just say thank you so much for the appreciation of the culture that y'all shared. It really came out, especially with the cameos of y'all partaking in the different ceremonies and everything. And I actually had a question for you, Sean, because you live in Calvert, city of 929. Can you share your story about how you got into spirituality? Because that is just so unique. Just someone living in a small town to be so open, and I loved how you had the conversation with the driver about the Vedas and everything. Mm-hmm. Can you share your story?
Yeah, so we moved to that town 5 years ago. before that, we were in Denton. When I met Jenny, my wife, she lived in the ashram in Denton. There's an ashram there. And about 2 years before Jenny and I met, I had gone through a big life change and kind of semi-reluctantly agreed to go to a yoga class. And it shook me up because there were things that were changing about myself very rapidly just doing yoga, and then that led to getting initiated into a meditation practice. And there was so much positive change happening in my life that when that starts happening and it's kind of unexpected, then you want to learn as much as you can about like what is this and why are these things happening. And so that's what I did. And then when Jenny and I got together, we decided to. I had for quite a few years wanted to find a place where I could set up my art studio, kind of a live-work situation in an old, building. And so we ended up purchasing a building that was built in 1869 in this little town. And it's the reason we chose this town is it's centrally located between Houston, Dallas, and Austin, where I have clients between the three. And so that's what got us down there. And Jenny teaches yoga classes. She's been teaching yoga for many years and teaches classes down there. And we've just got our little bubble that we live in down there now.
Okay, way in the back.
Yeah, so I know the ethos of Exploredinary is to explore the ordinary and find the extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah.
For years now, you've been documenting artists in North Texas and artists coming through North Texas in both video and photography. Why is it that concentrating on makers is such an important aspect of your storytelling?
Mm-hmm.
Hadi Muwagdi, good God, man, is that you? I recognize that voice. You take it first of all, and then I can.
Well, I think that there is something so authentic about somebody who it takes a lot of gall to be an artist. It takes a lot of courage to put stuff out there. And to risk being judged or criticized. And typically what happens throughout an artist's career is, people start off doing what they love, and then they receive some sort of criticism, and then some people kind of like fizzle out of that trajectory. But the artists that do that long term, there's something so authentic and so real about people that do that. And I'm talking about like any art form. So whether it's architecture, whether it's design, whether it's, painting like what Sean does, whether it's cooking, anything like that. You really have to be so authentically yourself to be successful that I find that the message there, I guess ultimately the message that I'm interested in is authenticity. So maybe that's why we or I personally focus a lot on creators or people creating things, because I think it's kind of like this vulnerable space that not a lot of people occupy. And so I think to me, it's something worth training the lens on.
And it's so much fun to be a fly on the wall and see things be created, especially like she was saying, somebody that's masterful at their craft, to just watch them effortlessly, like to watch Sean pinstripe those cars or throw that gold leaf on like it's nothing. I mean, to be able to film that, then you're only concerned with, it's like similar to a director working with an actor, except they're got to be like, you didn't quite nail it that time. But when the actor, essentially the artist, is perfect, and all you have to worry about is my lighting right? Is this movement look good? I mean, it's just so much fun. And we really love what we do.
Great. Another question at the top there?
Question is for Sean. I'm curious, was there a big shift in your influence of your art from your trip, and also the type of clients that who were drawn to work with you after the trip?
I think probably the biggest influence that probably shifted for me artistically was just there's an opulence to the artwork in Nepal. You go and tour through those temples, and the craftsmanship is just it's breathtaking, and some of it's just so old. And I think that when you're exposed to that kind of thing, and you're also working in some form of craftsmanship or artistry, that it really pushes you to kind of want to level up to that. And so I have seen a difference in my work. As far as aesthetically, I don't know that there's anything directly, but I'm sure there's a lot indirectly that is, making its way in after that experience.
All right, we're going to do 2 more questions. We'll wrap up, and then I'm sure they'll be happy to chat with you more once we wrap the official Q&A as well. Any more questions? Yeah, over here.
I just was wondering how many documentaries you'll have done and what's next.
We do so many short stories, and that's how we're able to turn our passion into our profession, because it's like, a certain brand needs an artist short story or like a artist mural documented. And so we've done so many short films, but this is only our second feature film that's over an hour long. But all that knowledge from doing the short form stuff, even if it's corporate work, has like just kind of poured into this and trained us how to make longer form. So officially only 2, but we're just always working. Here you go.
No, that's good.
It's Ari. Say something to Ari.
She's like, no, it's 2. I don't have anything to add. Okay, one more.
Sean, you said during the idea for the mural came during the meditation. You described that moment and like the feeling that allowed you to pull the trigger on that.
I had just maybe 3 weeks prior to that had the conversation with Vishu about the school, and immediately started trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do out there? And I really wanted to express something that was kind of universal, and was kind of struggling with that for about 3 weeks. And then just in a meditation session, it just popped in my head that art is love and love is eternal. And just kind of kept playing with that in my mind, and was thinking, is that true? Do I really believe that that's true? And is that something that I would really want to, put out there, especially with, the school and the kids and all that? And came to the conclusion that, I really do believe that is true. And I think everybody that works creatively is really giving of themselves in a way that is truly an expression of love. And that love is just constantly echoing once we put something out there, whether it's a painting or a film or music or anything else. And that's what connects us. That's what those are the things that resonate with us. And when you pare everything down, we're all about our stories and the stories that we share with each other. And those things are eternal, because that's truly what being human is to me.
Can you tell them about how it's available?
I was going to say
on the
that sounds like a
website?
great way to finish, but okay, if you want to keep going.
Sarah's like,
Well,
This is what the filming was like.
can you tell them about how it's available for anybody to use on the website?
Oh, yeah. So we had discussed this as well. I decided to take the artwork that you see in the film that I painted on the school, and we made that Creative Commons so that anyone could download it. And we've already got a couple of artists, including one in Nepal, who's working with Vishu to get out to some other areas to paint that same message. And, you know, we're hoping that people will take that upon themselves to, you know, interpret that artwork in their own way, but to also, I think it's a really positive, important message to put out there.
Well, I guess we should ask then, what's next for the film? Where does it go from here? Where could people see it? If they have friends that did not see it tonight, how can they see it again next? What are the distribution plans?
We don't know about distribution yet, but we definitely, so this whole experience and getting the film to where we really liked it caused us to create what's called the Art is Love Project. And so we have artisloveproject.com, and all the info's on there, including about screenings and the downloading of the mural to be able to do that. So it's all on there, and we did intentionally call it Art is Love Nepal because we do want to do another one somewhere. So we're just putting this out there, and this film is a piece of art that is love. So we're just putting the love out there and seeing what happens with the series and continuing the series.
Awesome. Congratulations.